So, good morning to everyone. Today we are pleased to welcome Mr. Bhutani from, I would say, Copenhagen, but you are coming from India. You have done your studies in Switzerland at the World Trade Institute for your master studies, and you have decided to start a very exciting business and a new dealing with a new important issue with sustainability. Basically, so you will provide us with your insight with respect to the circular economy. So you are also the Chief Executive Officer of the Circular Innovation Lab, in Copenhagen. So I will let you the floor, and then I will also provide the opportunity for students of our master program in sustainability and green business that have prepared this session to ask you some questions that you know already. And to discuss. So once again, we thank you for being here today with us at our international school.
Thank you, my pleasure. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Just to start, I mean, I cannot say that I'm an expert on circular economy because nobody is. Right? Nobody knows what circular economy is, to be honest. If we start from the Industrial Revolution, we've been just taking the resources, making it into products and throwing them out. We actually do not have idea how the new economic system will shape place. We are just trying to figure it out on what will happen and how it will happen. So this is more of I think there's a lot of exchange that I would like to have in this class because we are all learning circular economics, and let's do that today. So, we will start a bit about what we do at the Circular Innovation Lab, then a little bit of introduction on circular economy, then what are the CE opportunities in terms of climate change, practicalities of business transitions to circular economy, whether it makes sense or not, and how it makes sense or not. So the language, when we speak to policymakers, the language has to be different. When we speak to businesses, the language has to be totally different. You have to carve out the economic angle, otherwise businesses won't do it unless they are pressured to do it. Still, it does not make sense because it's a free market. So we have to kind of ensure that subsidies and pushing them too much does not happen, and it becomes automatically that they start to transition. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And then we'll have questions and discussions, but we can always have it in between also. There's a lot of time, and we can stop whenever you guys want. And I would also ask, I've also been on the other side. I've also typed a lot of notes, but you'll get the video. You guys can look at it afterwards. So I hope they get the video, right? So they'll get the video. So just let's talk, let's not type, and let's have a good time. Okay. So at the Circular Innovation Lab, we work in 4 different streams. I'll give a bit of trajectory on how I started this. I used to work at the UN as a legal officer for a couple of years. And while it looks fancy, I got very bored, did not have the passion to do it in between legal text all the time. And that's when the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, if you guys know, in the UK, knows, they are the pioneers of circular economy in the modern world. They offered me a job to start the India project with them. So I went to India and I started working with them. And that's when I got an opportunity to go to Myanmar. And we signed an agreement with them to, so what happened was Myanmar asked us if we could do a national roadmap for them. And Ellen MacArthur said, there is no bandwidth, we can't do it. So I quit Ellen MacArthur and I started my own company to do that. And then the coup happened. And while I signed the MOU, the same day the coup happened there in Myanmar. So then it was 1 week of being there. So a very exciting start to the business. And then leaving the job, I had no other, apart from the Myanmar project, there was nothing else to do at that time. So it was quite a start. But then we figured out that circular economy is so big, so huge. No one organization, no UN alone. Nobody can do it alone. It's so we found a gap in the business. So we started doing that. And now we work in 4 different streams. One is national circular economy roadmaps with governments, research and recommendations, capacity building workshops and trainings, and supporting government and policies with insights and tools for policymakers to transition to a circular economy. Our focus areas lie in textiles, electronics, food, and plastics. Although I'm not a very big fan of focus areas, to be honest, because if we look at economic sectors in isolation, we cannot have systemic shift. But the world is still looking at the circular economy world is still looking at it in a very isolated manner. There's a very interesting concept I read the other day, it was started by the WHO, called One Health. It's a concept that says that we are all together, like animal life, human life, and plant life. This is one ecosystem that is there. But what we do at the moment is we sometimes, let's say, focus on animal life, then we look at plant life, we look at human life, and COVID has taught us that it's not helping, right? Looking at animal life and not looking at human life at the same time does not help. So at the same time, in this scenario also, looking at 4 sectors and not looking at the economic system as a whole is not going to change the problem, because the economic system is flawed. Economic system we've started since the Industrial Revolution is absolutely flawed. And whatever we say with new innovations or anything coming up in these 4 areas, let's say this coat could in the future be made of banana textiles or something like that, it's not going to make a difference. In the end, you'll be growing banana at an industrial scale. And that's not the key of circular economy. We work with 3 governments at the moment, Philippines, Angola, and Paraguay, on their circular economy roadmaps with different sector areas: agriculture, fisheries, marine letters, mining. Angola is the most advanced one, where the state secretary, we were at the World Circular Economy Forum in Kigali, run by the World Economic Forum. And the state secretary of environment in Angola helped us out and signed the agreement with us there in front of dignitaries. So that's very advanced stage. We are actually speaking to the Portuguese to fund the project as well. Philippines, GIZ, the German government, is supporting us on that. And Paraguay is still pretty nascent. Can't see the slide. We are doing a study with Chatham House. Everybody is aware of Chatham House. It used to be called as the Royal Institute of International Affairs. One of the oldest running think tanks of the world. Started in 1923, exactly 100 years ago. And so we jointly approached the Vietnamese government to work on circular economy, and Vietnam has to, by law, by the end of this year, has to have a national action plan on circular economy. And the minister wanted us to look at how they could learn from the international experience. So there are so many countries. France has its own action plan. Sweden has its own. So they don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we were tasked to learn from the best practices of these countries, so that Vietnam starts at a later stage and not reinvent the wheel and not do the same mistakes as they did. So this is a running project at the moment. This is Spondre is the government of Vietnam, and we've just recently signed an agreement with the government of Senegal to look at circularity gaps and how we can do the stakeholder mobilization in Senegal, looking at also doing a circularity gap assessment for the Dakar region. And we're speaking to the French on this. Actually, the government is speaking to the French government to support us on this project. And we're going there next month to see how it happens. This is a study we are doing with Dr. Badrinarayan Gopalakrishnan. He's a very big trade economist. He's also a fellow at Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is the think tank that is chaired by the Indian Prime Minister. So the idea of this study is to look at how India can be a part of the global circular value chains. So this is it's almost finished. We'll publish it next month. We're working on a study done by the European Environmental Bureau. You guys are aware of them. They're in Brussels. It's an NGO, very old NGO, 50 years old NGO that works on European environmental policies and pushes the EU to do well. It is really always pushing the EU to do well. So really smart people there. They have given us a project to look at. If you see Europe, a lot of products and materials don't get recycled here because it's too expensive. So they are shipped to Africa. And as per the international law, shipping of waste is illegal right now, thanks to the Basel Convention, Bamako Convention, and the Stockholm Convention. But what has happened is that we're looking at two sectors. We are looking at vehicles and electronics. What happens is that these products are labeled as used, but they're actually waste. But how will anybody know about it, right? Because the HS codes, you guys are aware of the HS codes, right? HS codes is a series of number that is given to every export shipment as per the product. So let's say this bottle has a HS code of 44. It's a 6-digit code, 4404, whatever. But there is no separate HS code for a used bottle. So when it will be shipped as 4404, whatever. So the customs official cannot open all the shipments to check whether it is a used item or an unused item. It can only be opened when it's either Interpol or somebody kind of suspects around that. So what happens in that there are organizations which are not doing a lot of ethical work, and they export these electronic items which are actually waste, and even vehicles, even textiles. Textile is the worst. I mean, at least with electronics, you can kind of think of repairing them. With vehicles, you can think of repairing them, at least for a few years. With textile, it's a big no-no. Nothing can happen. So the problem is that the African economies are struggling with their own problems. How will they manage the new waste that comes in at such high inflows? So what happens is that the idea of what we are trying to do is that Europe has a very strong EPR system. So using the digital product passport, which is about to come, every product being made in the EU will soon have a ID, which will be online. So it can be tracked where the product goes. Now, how that will happen, we don't know yet. It's still under the law. So when the product moves to Africa, the EPR fees, EPR, you guys aware? No. It's extended producer responsibility, right? It is when any product is manufactured, the producer pays the recycling organization a certain amount of money that in the end, that the recycling organizations will use that money to recycle those goods, right? But in this case, the recycling organizations get the money, but the products are shipped to Africa. It's a win-win situation for the exporters to make money and win-win situations for the recycling organizations. And if you ask the recycling organizations, they're not transparent at all. They never tell how much fees they have left. So it's kind of it's really bad for Africa. So what we are trying to do is building a case around the fees to move to African recycling organizations, which is very tough, which is good in theory at the moment, because EPR fees is not even moving in Africa at the moment, in Europe at the moment. If let's say a good is being produced in the Netherlands and it has its end of life in Germany, the EPR fees lies in Netherlands and never moves to Germany. So imagine the situation, how it will move from Germany to Senegal, for instance. It's a very difficult case. We're not saying that EPR will solve the problem. It can be a part of the problem. The major solution is not to create such products that need to be sent out. They should continue to be in the European ecosystems, because by using repair, reuse, ensuring that they don't reach the waste stage. But while that does not happen, we cannot burden other countries for our own mess. And even if we kind of have a business opportunity to that, then it has to be a legitimate one to ensure that there is an environmentally sound way of handling the goods there. So it's a very complicated situation. We are finalizing this study in 2 weeks. Then my team is working on, it's led by my co-founder. We're working on a framework on sustainability investments for the government of Philippines. they've asked us to. So the government of Philippines has given certain subsidies and certain grants for industries that qualify the sustainability investment framework. So we are helping them out in creating that indicator method so that every investment that comes in can get those grants, and promote investors to follow these kind of indicators to ensure that Philippines get good investments. This is a long project that's going to take 1 year or so to finish. Just started. We've also, apart from this, just last week, we've given the task to be the authors for the Global Environment Outlook. That is the flagship report. This has nothing to do with the slide. Just wanted to add. This is the flagship report of the UNEP that happens every 5 years. And so we'll be writing the circular economy chapter with Chatham House on it. And so we'll be there for 3 weeks next month in Bangkok to not very environment friendly to go to Bangkok for sure, to be there and to start the process of this. The key ambition of GEO7 UNEP is to have net zero, and we're trying to be very, very ambitious, because if we don't vision the sky, we're not going to reach halfway. So scratching the surface cannot really help. We've also started the CG modeling system. We have onboarded a modeler for that, Dr. Badrinarayan Gopalakrishnan, and he has 20 years of work experience on CG modeling. We did this kind of initiative with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, where you kind of project, let's say by 2030, how much emissions will be reduced when you follow the circular economy method, and if you follow the business as usual scenario method. So these are kind of predictions that help policymakers and academia and businesses to kind of take the right decisions through modeling, through assumptions. It's not really accurate all the time, but we try to give a perspective around that. We do a lot of capacity building workshops and training. First one is in Indonesia, the second one is in Taiwan, then the other one is in Copenhagen. We do quite a few of them. Yesterday we did a seminar at the International Trade Institute on international trade and circular economy. And while trade is not at all circular, it is not at all circular. I mean, if you look at circular economy, trade should only happen between borders. We should not be importing kiwis from New Zealand or avocados from South America. That does not make any sense. Or flowers from Africa. That does not make sense at all. I mean, the trade liberals always say that trade really helps a lot of people and really makes people rich. I don't think so. Trade is important, but trade cannot solve everything in the world, like the trade people say that. And I'm a trade lawyer myself, and there are always over optimism of international trade. So we are trying to break that scenario. While trade is important, we kind of need to fix our homes first and ensure that we eat local, we buy local, as local as possible. And trading between neighbors is the best way to follow international trade. Next week, we're doing a seminar at the World Trade Institute. That's where I studied also 10 years ago. And it's again on trade and circular economy, a little boring, but then this is our biggest project that we've done. It took us 1 year to complete that. We were tasked by the UNDP in Costa Rica to Costa Rica is very different from most of the developing countries in the world. In fact, even from the developed countries in the world. Elections are won on environment policy. Can you believe that? I have never seen a country where environment policy is right at the top. And it's an impressive country. And so they wanted to bring a circular economy law. So we were asked by them if we could do a benchmarking review of global circular economy legislations. By that, we meant like we had to look at 7 countries and we had to read their circular economy law and analyze which ones can be used for the Costa Rican environment and socio-economic conditions. So we did that. We also looked at the French law, which is, I don't know about the practicalities of it, but it's a very advanced law. France has one of the most advanced circular economy law in the world. China was I think Japan was the first in the world. I think they came in circular society, they call it, in 2000. 2008 was circular promotion law of China, which is on theory amazing. I don't know what happened in the end. And France is the most advanced one in a circular economy law. It's absolutely fantastic. Look at the supermarkets not being allowed to throw stuff. They also have the first country in the world to have extended producer responsibility on textiles, which is very difficult. That's why H&M and all of these brands don't like to sell too much in France, as they don't like to keep dead stock in France for sure, because it's expensive to sell in France. But France is ambitious, and France is actually leading the way in the EU, and now EU is bringing the extended producer responsibility in textile in the whole of the EU. So extended producer responsibility, I'll repeat again, when H&M, let's say, produces this coat, they have to pay 10 euros to the recycling organization. Produces or exports to France from wherever it is, as long as it enters French borders, they have to pay to the recycling organizations. So we did this, and now it's being tabled in the parliament. We worked with the lawyers to draft into a law, and now it's being tabled in the parliament. It's being discussed with the new government on becoming a national legislation. We last year worked on switch to circular economy value chain. That's a UNIDO project. UNIDO is based in Vienna, United Nations Industrial Development Organization. And we worked with them on plastics and textiles, where we worked with European multinational corporations to develop circular economy projects with their partners in developing countries. Developing countries minus G20 countries. So we had like a very little scope. So we worked with 2 countries, Thailand for Tetra Pak and Morocco for Coca-Cola. In Coca-Cola, we worked on developing a PET recycling facility there. And in Thailand, it was Tetra Pak and chemical recycling. Have you guys seen Tetra Pak packaging? I'd like to show you guys. Hold on. Super interesting to show that. How do I fix it? You see now? You must have seen all this. Milk carton bottles.
Yeah.
It's the worst product ever in the world, because it has paper, it has aluminium, it has plastics, and it has also some wood board carbon or something like that. The 4 elements. It can never be recycled. It can never be recycled. I mean, however much we put the milk cartons in the right box, it can only be burnt. Because how will you separate these materials which are ingrained into one? So that's why they wanted to do chemical recycling. So they put in the chemical and then nothing is left, which also has a life cycle assessment problem of what will happen after that. We don't know. How will we dispose of the chemicals and all of that? So any material that has more than one material is not a circular material at all. Even if this coat has wool plus cotton plus plastic fiber, all our clothes have plastics now. It can never be recycled. Fast fashion is full of plastic polymers everywhere. So this is the UNIDO project. Then we are working on a global roadmap project we are part of the executive committee on this with the World Economic Forum, African Circular Economy Network, UNEP, UNIDO, World Business Council for Sustainable Development, Chatham House. There are 12 organizations, including the Finnish government. And we've kind of realized the whole circular economy agenda is either only focused on plastics or it's looking at the North, the developed countries looking at it. And I think the South is quite left behind. By South, I mean the developing world. And this is a global problem of pollution, of plastics, environmental problem. And having national solutions, let's say only in Europe, will not going to make a difference because global problems require global solutions. There are 53 countries that are independently working on their national roadmaps. And all of them have their own indicators, have their own standards, have their own methods to do it. Everybody's reinventing the wheel. Everybody's trying to do that on their own. So the global roadmap vision is we'll be working with 12 governments to start and to have a global idea of a roadmap. It's not going to be a treaty because if you go to the UN, then it starts a treaty and then it takes 4 years and probably it does not happen. Somebody vetoes it and does not happen at the General Assembly. We're trying to have a very loose framework for countries to follow when they develop their own national roadmaps. We're having and to be very fair, we don't know how we'll do it. It just launched in December, the project. We've just signed. Our first workshop is in March, next month, with online and then in Helsinki in May at the World Circular Economy Forum. If you guys want to catch up the World Circular Economy Forum online, please do so. It's on May 28th to 30th, I think. I'm not sure. It's somewhere end of May, but register for it. It's super interesting. We were there in Rwanda this December, and it is a kind of a culmination of circular economy minds and governments. So it's super interesting to see. So we're doing our workshop there in Helsinki this time in May on this. This is our advisory board. This is not very gender balanced, I am aware. So very difficult to find. We found 2 very interesting people, but then there are funders, females, they couldn't join. That's very surprising. If we in our team we have 70% women, but we can't find people at high level at this stage, at such high level in the industry. And we are really trying to do that. We still have a pretty impressive lineup there. This is Jocelyn Blériot, he's at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, then Patrick Schroeder from Chatham House, Marcus Terrio from Citra. Citra is leading the circular economy world. It's Finnish Innovation Fund. It is funded by the Finnish government. They are also the organizers for the World Circular Economy Forum. So pretty big in what they do. A lot of funds, a lot of insights. And then there is Dr. Badri Narayan, who's at the Niti Aayog. He's also joined us as a modeler. This is our team. This is our partnerships. Now, coming to the circular economy. Anybody has any idea about it? After we discuss something, we can discuss at least a few things. Any random idea, does not have to be right.
I think it's an economy that gives life to the products after they're dead in the regular economy.
Okay, nice, impressive. Yes, please. You want to say something?
It was kind of the same thing, but it also has to do with how the policies are made, and I think it's a completely different idea of what we have of the current system, and we don't use products as storable goods, and we try to make them live on as much as possible, and it's not about accumulating profit anymore only, but about everything that's surrounding us.
Right. That's true. Both of you are true. Anybody else?
it's a solution to the linear economy we're into right now, and it takes as an example the ecosystem, the natural ecosystem we have in the region.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah. In short, we follow the nature, and anything that comes out has to go back to the nature again. We'll see a small video, and then we'll talk more on that. This is a video which I saw to understand circular economy 7 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, whatever. This is the most easiest way. Before that, I was just saying yes in the office. I had to say everything. This is the best video on circular. And in fact, we are making our own animation as well. Hold on. Okay, we need speakers. Do we have, sir? I have to connect it to wire. Okay. Can it be put there? Let's see. It should work.
There is a video here.
One for many.
Okay, so thank you.
Living systems have been around for a few billion years and will be around for many more. In the living world, there's no landfill. Instead, materials flow. One species' waste is another's food. Energy is provided by the sun. Things grow, then die, and nutrients return to the soil safely. And it works. Yet as humans, we've adopted a linear approach. We take, we make, and we dispose. A new phone comes out, so we ditch the old one. Our washing machine packs up, so we buy another. Each time we do this, we're eating into a finite supply of resources and often producing toxic waste. It simply can't work long term. So what can? If we accept that the living world's cyclical model works, can we change our way of thinking so that we too operate a circular economy? Let's start with the biological cycle. How can our waste build capital rather than reduce it? By rethinking and redesigning products and components and the packaging they come in, we can create safe and compostable materials that help grow more stuff. As they say in the movies, no resources have been lost in the making of this material. So what about the washing machines, mobile phones, fridges? We know they don't biodegrade. Here, we're talking about another sort of rethink, a way to cycle valuable metals, polymers, and alloys, so they maintain their quality and continue to be useful beyond the shelf life of individual products. What if the goods of today became the resources of tomorrow? It makes commercial sense. Instead of the throwaway and replace culture we've become used to, we'd adopt a return and renew one, where products and components are designed to be disassembled and regenerated. One solution may be to rethink the way we view ownership. What if we never actually owned our technologies? We simply licensed them from the manufacturers. Now, let's put these two cycles together. Imagine if we could design products to come back to their makers, their technical materials being reused and their biological parts increasing agricultural value. And imagine that these products are made and transported using renewable energy. Here we have a model that builds prosperity long term. And the good news is there are already companies out there who are beginning to adopt this way of working. But the circular economy isn't about one manufacturer changing one product. It's about all the interconnecting companies that form our infrastructure and economy coming together. It's about energy. It's about rethinking the operating system itself. We have a fantastic opportunity to open new perspectives and new horizons. Instead of remaining trapped in the frustrations of the present, with creativity and innovation, we really can rethink and redesign our future.
What are your thoughts on the video? Any insights, any questions on that? Any major learning, anything that caught your attention the most? What was that?
It was a work we should do together, not only one company doing it for themselves.
Right. And yes, please.
What I wonder is, in theory, it makes so much sense, but how can we incline people to do it or force them to do it if they don't do it on their own? Because
The companies?
yeah, they keep doing whatever they want and there is nothing happening really, except for a few little companies.
Yeah. So it has to come with a combination of things. It has to come by force a little bit. Let's look at the right to repair the EU has come up with. Apple protested for several months. EU did not care. We don't care about it. You have to make products that are repairable. You have to give people self-repair kits to repair their iPhones. Make money out of self-repair kits, we don't care. Make money about repairing, we don't care. But you can't sell products that cannot be repaired. So it has to be a little strong hand by the policymakers. But at the same time, it has to make business sense for businesses to do it. So now Apple is charging a huge amount for repairing and a much more huge amount for renting the repair kit that only they will provide. So they're making money out of that also. So there are ways to make money. There are ways to improve your balance sheet out of these things. But it has to happen. We don't have a choice. And I'll get on the economic side of things in that. My key learning from the video is that we have to rethink the system. So now I have a question for you guys. Is plastics a good material or not? Or what do you think about plastic?
It's used correctly. It's a good material, but we have to recycle it and re-put this in the value chain cycle. So
Right.
I don't think that is. I think that the companies don't use plastic like it has to be used.
Lovely. Yes. So when plastic actually came about, it was never meant to be used like this. It was a durable material. If you look at, let's say a bucket, that is used in developing countries a lot, by the way, for to carry water. It can be used for 10 years and nothing happens to it. But the industry soon realized that if you make something durable, it's not going to make money, right? Because you have to sell. How do we make money in GDP economic model of growth? Current economic model is we sell as fast as possible. We sell as cheap as possible. And we make products that die soon, and so that we can sell more as fast as possible. That's how we make money in the current economic system. So plastics is not the problem. This is the whole anti-plastic. It's our problem. We are the problem. Plastic is a wonderful material. Look at what they've done. Plastic has saved millions and millions of lives in the medical industry. It is such a fantastic material. It was never meant to be used like this. Let's look at, I think when I was young, I was in school 15, 20 years ago. I was told that we should not use paper because paper leads to deforestation. We should use plastics. Okay, the industry told us and the schools taught us, let's move to plastic. Plastic is durable. And now they're asking us to go back to paper again.
Yeah.
It's such a foolish thing to do. It's absolutely foolish. It's because paper was not bad then. Plastic is not bad now. It is us, that how we manage materials. That's why I always say innovations coming in. The World Economic Forum has this huge innovation, and I love what they do, and I also kind of associate with them on projects. But they have this huge database on circular economy innovations, which you should see. You guys should go at website and look at it. But then I am a firm believer that unless the economic system is changed, nanotechnology, super nanotechnology, or AI or whatever, blockchain will not solve this problem at all, because it's a systemic problem. And by getting all these new things and new fancy words and new tech coming in, we're just delaying the problem. We're scratching the surface. Often we get this, somebody in Spain has made textile fiber out of orange peel. Now it's fabulous what they've done. But now when orange will be utilized on land, like grown on land for industrialized textile, that will be the problem. That will lead to soil erosion, that will lead to soil deprivation. You lose fertilizers for it. It would lead to a problem of food security, like we had with biodiesel and biofuels. You guys may not know, 10 years ago, biofuels was a very big thing, and it would solve the whole fuel crisis. And then so many people moved to biofuels. It led to food insecurity, food issues, so many problems. And then it died down. People made money out of it and it died down. It's the same way in the electric vehicles also. Electric vehicle. If you guys should Google, we had electric vehicles in 1930s. Yes, when Henry Ford made the car, we had electric vehicles, but the gasoline industry was too big to make them work. The only thing was that they couldn't go intercity at that time, but it was 1930s. What can you expect? Right? It was still in infancy. The cars were not very new. But then it did not come about because one industry was bigger than the other one. The batteries we've been having since 1850s, 1860s for smaller things have that innovation. So why couldn't it develop up until now? So now we're thinking that electric vehicles will solve the whole situation. It will not solve the problem unless we are sure. And if there are life cycle assessment studies that say that you have to drive an electric vehicle for 5 years to compare it to a diesel car or a petrol car, because the emissions that are incurred while manufacturing a battery is super huge, because there's a lot of rare earth metals and a lot of mining that needs to be done. So we don't really, the only good thing is that you don't have to control emissions of single cars, right? You can have emission control at one standard facility where battery recycling is. So at a city level, it really improves a lot of air quality. But if you look at it on a holistic level, electric vehicles probably don't have that much, unless we kind of ensure the closed looping of things, that batteries go back to batteries again. If batteries go into landfill or battery goes into recycling, no, it's not. Like recycle, I think we are also taught that recycling is the best thing to do. It's not. We are ingrained to think like that. We'll get more on that. So this is the linear economic model, which is the take, make, dispose model. And then there's another model, which is circular economy, where we ensure that everything is in the loop again and does not go out. Anybody would like to explain this to everybody?
The linear economy is about, as you said earlier, make, use, and dispose.
Yes.
Then passing to the recycling economy is about reducing the waste, but still having waste. And the circular economy is about trying to, as much as possible, not having waste.
Excellent. Absolutely. And it is and how we do that is by ensuring that it remains in the economic system, by reuse, repair, reduce, recycle, and all of that. So recycling economy is not the optimum economy, but it's a big economy. There are big big industries that work on recycling. So they ensure that recycling economy is the big economy. Because in circular economy, it's difficult to make money unless you add services angle to it. Unless the companies add services to it. I've often been to conferences where, so there was a conference, a national waste conference done by CII in India. I went in 2017. There was this one waste management machine. It was called, I think, P Alpha 1. Like, okay, that's impressive. Next year I went, there was B Alpha 2, and they would change this. And then I went B Alpha 3, they would change that. That's not going to solve problem with new incremental innovations and changing the machine a bit. And they said they would do this and that. Recycling is just delaying the problem. It is not. Recycling is good up until we have solutions, but it is not the solution to the problem, because the rate at which we are creating waste is much faster than the recycling technology or setup can ever reach. It is super fast at which we are creating waste. So we have to reduce our speed and stop creating waste for the recycling economy to even survive, in terms of, not survive, they're surviving, but in terms of operationalization that they can do something good.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So there is a limit to recycling, because you can recycle 3-4 times certain product, afterwards it won't be able to be recycled anymore. So if we took a look at the circular economy part, that means that recycling should be the last option.
Absolutely.
And we should favor first reuse the 2 other or 3 other R's. But then if recycling is the last option, wouldn't we reach a point where circular economy itself cannot be maintained? We will still have waste at the end of the day. Maybe just delayed. You know what I mean?
Ideally, yes. I'll get on the next slide where we talk about this point. Okay. Okay, no, this. There is a slide that. Okay, we'll talk about that. This and then we go back. Okay, so this is the butterfly diagram, exactly what you're saying. We look at the 2 cycles to it, and we'll talk about the. Is it okay if I stand there? The camera? Yeah. This is the technical cycle of things and of any product. So the ideal is that when we have the closest circle, which is sharing economy, we ensure that products are shared as fast as possible, as much as possible, and do not go out. It's because that's the best way of utilization of resources, when it is one resource is being utilized by many people. Then if it is not possible to share, let's say the product is not working, then we kind of work around maintaining it and prolonging the life of a product. Then we look at reusing and redistributing it through other means. And then we look at refurbishment, remanufacturing of the same, and recycling. Recycling actually comes at the very end. And it also leads to negative externalities always. Recycling is not the optimum solution. It leads to, let's say, when we recycle a PET bottle, a lot of, you know what a PET bottle is, right? Yeah, PET. So when we recycle a PET bottle, there are a lot of negative externalities. There is loss of efficiency. Like she said, only we could, and it's already written on the bottle that we can only recycle 4 times. So that's why I always say that we should aim to design products that do not reach the recycling stage. That reach that only reach the refurbishment and remanufacturing stage and actually go back quickly in the cycle again, in the loop again. So it is the absolute last system to think of. Because if we look at recycling, then definitely there's going to be waste. But at some points, you can't ignore recycling also, because the system is very linear. It is because we are designing our products in a way that either they are thrown or they are recycled. And why does this happen? And this bottle is, look at this cap. This cap is very flimsy, right? It's a very flimsy cap. I probably can use it 10 times. and it will break after that. And so this is designed to be thrown and recycled.
Yeah.
So products need to be, at the moment when we design products, there are engineers and tech people, and there are business people in the room, but we don't have designers in the room. Design for circular economy is the most important thing. We have to design out waste. I'll get back to that slide again. We can only do make, return, use, repair, reuse when products are designed to be repaired. If the iPhone is not designed to be repaired, it cannot be repaired. So the key, so there are, when there is a product, let's look at this bottle again. When there's a product, there are, and this is the life cycle of the product. This is the upstream side, a side where when products are designed, the designers and manufacturers think about the end of the life of the product. What happens now is that we create mess, we create bad products, and then we think on what to be done after that. So circular economy is about upstream innovation. This is about the upstream side of things, and this is the downstream. So starts with when you are planning products, when you're thinking about products, and ends with the end of life of the product. Up until now, that's why we are unsuccessful in our vision. It's because we are creating the problem and then finding a solution. So that's why upstream innovation, upstream design thinking is the key to circular economy. Even when you go to jobs, when you go to businesses, you have to think about this as the key for the environment. Okay. Anybody on anything on this? No. So we take a small example of the textile industry, of fast fashion. It's simply weird to think, it's disastrous to think one garbage truck is incinerated or landfilled every second in the world. I mean, this is not possible. I mean, how can we sustain like this? It is absolutely not possible. And it is so weird that fair fashion is expensive and fast fashion is cheap. It's the same way as organic food is expensive, where you're not adding fertilizer to it, where you're not adding new things to it. Organic is expensive and non-organic is cheap. When you're because you follow the industrialized system, the GDP economic model of the linear economies of scale, Adam Smith, he taught us that produce as fast as possible, produce as cheap as possible. That made sense, but does not make sense on the environment side of things, the nature side of things. So let's look at the linear economic model of textiles. Let's say there's fiber production happening somewhere in the world. We use oil in the factories. Then we produce them into products. Let's say in Bangladesh and India and Vietnam. Then they're shipped to be used in Europe. And then nothing. And probably we ship it again to some other place to dye it down, and they're gone. Every cloth item we buy has the same cycle. Otherwise, H&M would ask us, you go to H&M and H&M asks us, oh, you should give back the clothes to them and they recycle it. How will they recycle it? Clothes are not recyclable. And why is that? Like I said before, when cotton is mixed with polymers, how will you recycle it? You have to burn it. That's the only recycling that happens. You can upcycle it. You can make it into a bag, but that's only delaying the problem. Upcycling is also coming up very fast as the best thing ever. It's not the best thing ever. The problem is that you're creating bad products. Upcycling is it's a good business model. You know what upcycling, right? Right. Upcycling is just a good business model to generate economy, good money, and helps employment and all of that. But then it's only delaying the problem. Unless you make something that is durable by upcycling for 20 years or 30 years, which is not possible with these materials which are using fast fashion. So this is the linear economic model of textiles. So when we look at a circular model of textiles, there's also another thing in textiles. It's if you wash fast fashion, it leads to a lot of microfiber pollution. And why it is that? Because it has plastics in it. Can you believe it? Why are we adding plastic to our clothes? It's not required. It's because it's cheaper than natural fibers. That's the only thing. And it's probably a little durable and all of that. But there's another connotation to it. Let's compare a cotton bag grown on industrialized cotton farm versus a plastic bag. Which one is better? Not a single-use plastic bag, but a bag that can be used for a longer period of time.
Yes, but in this case, the plastic.
Yes. Anybody there?
Yeah.
And it's because on industrialized, you have to use that cotton bag for 5 years to be comparable to plastic, because the amount of water industrialized cotton farming requires massive. It's a water guzzler, and it's not sustainable at all. So it's, again, when we're trying to use the economies of scale on any material, be it cotton, be it plastics, it is the problem. So it's again the economic system that comes into play, right? So I talked about microfibers. So first is that we phase out the substances of concern, that is polymers from plastic when we manufacture goods, and ensure that microfiber is not there. In fact, if there's a study, I think done by University of Glasgow or Ireland, I'm not sure. They took samples from major supermarkets of seafood, and they found microfiber in it. We're actually consuming microfiber. There are some islands in India called the Andaman Nicobar Islands, where people have not been there. 50 years, they're banned. Like, nobody's there. They're banned to go to the natural reserves. And when the government actually went on a survey there, they found plastic that was brought in by the birds. So it's a major problem. It's a major problem. And you must have seen these very harrowing images of the seahorse tied up with the cotton bud Q-tip and the cotton Q-tip coming out of the tortoise nose. This is not, I don't know if it makes business sense or not, but humans are not the only one living on the planet. We have to be very mindful of that. We think we are, but it's not true. Animals are not for the zoos. So first we phase out the wrong materials at the design stage of things. And then we ensure that there is increased clothing utilization by ensuring that the sharing model is there and it does not go out. It does not go out. Like, ideally, it should stop at 2. The products should be designed in a way that it can continue to be at the second point and not reach the third point. It should not reach the third point where recycling will again lead to problems. And even if we have to recycle them, let's say as a last resort, then when we recycle it, the products that come, the materials that come out of it can be used again to make clothes again. So in a circular economy, a product that is recycled has to go back to the same product again. In Africa and India, these PET bottles are used to be added, and they're added to road construction because there's so much of them, and it's good material to do that, but it's not good. It's not good in terms of the environment because you have to burn the material. It makes the roads durable, but then it is still linear because then you need more plastics and then it dies down there. Ideal situation is that the PET bottle goes back to being a PET bottle. And that can only happen when the PET bottle created at the first time is at a very high grade quality. It is not a single-use plastic. So in this case, we radically improve recycling systems and we ensure that there are renewable sourced feedstocks and renewable energy in manufacturing these things. This is the vision given by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I still believe that there should have been more emphasis in the diagram on the phase one. It should be phase one is the key. Is absolute key because then we don't end up in phase three if we do it very well. Or we delay it like that. And even if we do it, even if we end up in phase three, by thinking well in phase one, we ensure that the materials that come out of recycling are relooked back into the system again. Any questions? No? Yes.
So just to go back to the beginning of your presentation in terms of common issues in developing countries when it comes to fostering the circular economy. But then again, you also mentioned upstream design thinking as a solution.
Yeah.
But that would imply changing the current system. And it's just, there's a lot. I'm Mozambican, and circular economy is one of our issues back home.
Yeah.
Because from one end, you have businesses trying to come up with solutions to tackle the circular economy, but then we also have an issue of corruption.
Oh yeah.
And governments favoring certain types of businesses, but that don't specifically follow this type of model. So I don't know if you've seen common issues in different parts, not just in Africa, but in the developing countries as a whole, when interacting with governments. What are the main issues when trying to bring up new ideas to local governments? And then perhaps the second question would be, I saw you were working with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. What has been the role of businesses in fostering the circular economy, and are they open to new ways of thinking?
Yeah. Governance is a major problem in developing countries. It's still high-level political dialogue is still good when you talk to the prime ministers and presidential and the minister. They all want to do everything, but it does not percolate. It does not percolate, and it's a big problem with local municipalities and local governments because they're used to doing things a certain way. I will not call corruption. I mean, but they are used to do things in a certain way, and I think. But on the other hand, if you look at developing countries, they were traditionally very circular. I think the Western path of civilization that they've taken is the wrong idea of Western path of growth. If you look at India, if you look at Southeast Asia, absolutely circular. Like my father still has the pen he used 30 years ago. That is circular economy. We don't have to be fancy about it. That is circular economy. He's been using the same pen for 30 years. So people in the developing countries are very circular. It's just that the West has realized the mistake and they're moving forward. It's the same as Indians not doing yoga and the world doing yoga. It's the same thing as that. So I think apart from the governance problems in the developing world, we have to realize that there is so much wealth in the developing world in terms of traditional knowledge that can be captured for circular economy. It's as like a low-hanging fruit. We are actually discussing on a project on this. Also supervising a thesis on this, where we are looking at how the developing country traditional knowledge can be utilized in relation to mapping up with the modern technology in agriculture. And we found that there are very simple solutions that traditional knowledge has in the developing world that can be used and does not require modern agro-intensive mechanized farming. So while there are challenges in developing countries, I think if we can stop that going away from our traditional growth models and stop and take a U-turn, there's still a lot. And they have so much wealth, and there is so much that the South, the developing world, can teach the developed world in circular economy is unsurmountable. West does not know circular economy very well. And I have a company in Copenhagen, and I'm being very honest about it. I am sitting in France. It's not circular. West is totally industrialized. That's why I think, like we always say, North to South cooperation. I think in this case, we need South to North transfer of knowledge at a very high level. And the world is realizing that. So your point on the developed, there are a lot of issues when we work with developing country governments. It's just that I think we should not impose ourselves on them with ideas, because probably they don't know what the word circular economy is, but they know what circular economy is. Right? So we can't really tell them what to be done. We can share the best practices, and I think they are very intelligent enough to figure out how to do it themselves.
Is waste management an area that you tackle?
Yes, yeah, because the waste is being created at very fast rate. So that we cannot continue, that we cannot ensure that the problem continues and then we'll solve the problem 10 years later down. So it has to be stopped and has to be managed well. But the vision is not about waste management. The vision is about not creating waste. And probably we will not be able to fully achieve that. But even if we achieve halfway or 50%, 70% of it, and we have less waste being produced and less waste being produced at a lower rate of growth, that is the vision that we need. On the business side of things, the businesses are very interested to it, as long as, like I said, economic angle is carved out for them. If you don't show economic angle and if the government does not force it, it's not going to happen. Yes, please.
I want to join Shanna on this one. I'm also from Madagascar. And as you said earlier, the problem is also on data.
Yeah.
How do you find data, and how do you monitor the work you put into place once you work with the government of developing countries?
Data is a big problem.
Yes.
Data is an absolute problem because we can't go on the ground, and the statistical offices in developing countries don't function very well. So there's a lot of assumptions that need to be done when the data is missing. We need to kind of do a lot of estimations. I think when there is lack of data, you kind of supplement it with qualitative analysis. You know, you do a lot of interviews, you talk to a lot of people, you talk on the ground with people, and that's the only thing you kind of fill in the gaps when there are data gaps. So that's why when we did the India project with Ellen MacArthur also, we did not have enough data, because India also does not have enough data. So we kind of worked with them on data plus qualitative analysis to kind of have a mix on to figure out where we are. So data is a big issue, and I don't have a solution to that, unfortunately. Yes, so data is a big issue. So we talk about how a circular economy would look like, and what are the major principles of circular economy. First, like we discussed, is designing out waste, like the phase one. Then using renewable energy. Renewable energy is also another problem. If you look at that's how in renewable energy also we have to look out, have we designed out waste or not? Right? Because the way we are using metals and mining to do renewable energy, it's again at the same level. I think India and France are chairing the World Solar Alliance and heading one of the biggest solar mission in the world. And the amount of solar cells that we are going to get in the next 10 years, we don't know what to do about them. They'll end up in landfills because they are not meant to be reused. So again, in a concept where, again, a take, make, dispose model, any good product, any good material is wrong. Solar cells are a fabulous material. It's a fabulous innovation. But then it's done in the wrong way, That's when, because we have not designed out the waste part of solar cells or renewable energy. Windmills are still better, but they are very less efficient in comparison to solar cells, and they require a lot of issues. Then, like you said before, that we have to always copy nature when we're talking about circular economy, regenerate nature back again, and ensuring that we circulate materials at their highest value. Like we discussed about how after the 4th recycling, the materials lose value. So we have to ensure that materials don't lose value through innovation, to ensure that materials get the highest value at all times in the loop. So there are people working on such things, that a PET bottle can be recycled 100 times also without losing efficiencies. There are people working on these kind of innovations, and that's what we need. Also, we need not to use single-use plastic PET bottles for sure, but if you're using durable bottles, we use them for a longer period of time. This is the diagram we spoke about. We didn't speak about the biological cycle. So right side is the technical cycle, and the left side is the biological cycle. In the biological cycle, it's very, very simple. It's not as complicated as the technical cycle. We have to ensure that whatever is grown at a farm goes back to the soil again. As simple as that. As simple as that. It goes back to the soil again. Now we have modern sewage systems now, but they're not good for the environment all the time. The ancient system of everything going back to the earth was the best way. So it is very simple. It is just that everything has to be regenerative. So the soil has to be regenerated again by the waste. Now, if you look at the modern agro-intensive farming, I'll give a small example. So this is the amount of energy in joules that is required to grow, let's say, 1 hectare of land. But this is the amount of energy we get out in terms of the food that we produce. We're always in deficit. We're giving more energy and getting less energy. And how are we doing it and why are we doing it? We don't know. But imagine, and whole this modern agro farming systems are not required. We're actually creating food for 12 billion people on the planet. There are not even enough people, 12 billion people on the planet. It's because we're wasting 50% of the food that is being. 50%. That's shameful for all of us. How is that possible? 50% food is 50% food that is being grown is being wasted. So we don't, and then we have agro companies telling us that we need to increase the yield. We probably don't. We need to yield better rather than increase the yield per hectare. We have to stop the industrialized farming aspect of things. If you look at normal old farming systems, they were absolutely fine. Yes, we must invest in distribution. We must invest in storage systems. We must have a lot of innovation at that end to ensure that when the food is produced, it has a long life, like a cold chain, or ensuring that people actually get food at the end. But growing is not a problem. Growing is not a problem at all. And the problem is that when we do modern agro-intensive farming, it takes at least 4 years to go back to organic. So once we are messed up with the whole ecosystem there, and we want to shift to organic farming, it takes the first year, the yield is very low. The second year, yield is low. Third year, it starts to increase. Fourth year, you kind of get back to where you were, and then you start rising. Then your yield actually rises higher and faster than modern agro farming. And the modern agriculture intensive farming, you look at it, let's say on 1 hectare of land, you have to add 100 kilos of fertilizer every year. Next year, for the same yield, you have to add 120 kilograms. How will the agro companies make money if you have to add the same, right? Because they have to grow. They have to grow every year, right? So it's a vicious cycle. It's an absolute vicious cycle that we are in. So that's why regenerative agriculture, and we don't even have to call it organic. Organic is another name that has come out. Regenerative agriculture is just about following the ancient principles of farming and ensuring that everything that is produced goes back to the farmer again. Much simpler than that. So, okay, we already discussed why is sharing preferable to recycling.
I'm sorry, we only have 2 minutes left from this session. Yeah,
Okay.
it goes so fast. Sorry, I don't want to interview. It's not interesting. Maybe you can you present us some practicalities of business transition?
Yes.
Maybe the 2 minutes are left.
Yes.
I know it's big.
No. Let me look at it. Technical cycle. Okay. Right. So these are the benefits for businesses that follow circular economy. One is obviously green growth opportunities. Customers want circular products and green products. And we also secure supply chain for finite resources. You look at the China and the Russia issue that has happened, right? It's a big problem for companies to secure and allocate and get their resources, right? So when you ensure that the products are continuously in the loop and you get back your products again and you reuse the products again, you ensure that you have right supply chains. And in the long run, you have higher profits also because you use the service model of things. You repair things, you reservice, repurpose things. For businesses, innovation is key to ensure that products have prolonged life. To give a small example, Amsterdam Schiphol Airport does not own any of the light bulbs at the airport anymore. Philips has leased out to them and they only use pay-per-use system. So now Philips, before the pay-per-use system, used to give bulbs that did not work for long because they had to sell more. But now that they'll only make money when the bulbs are functional, they maintain the bulbs very efficiently and they sell it as a service to them. It's a win-win situation. Schiphol Airport saves a lot of money when bulbs are not being used, and Philips earns money and ensures that the bulbs are always there. So, how can innovation accelerate circular economy transition? It leads to a lot of cost savings. You create new business models around recycling, reducing, reusing, and so on and so forth. So innovation is very important right at the start of upstream design thinking till the end of it. We need innovation at all stages of the supply chain. When you, in your businesses, we look at circular innovation, there are basically 4 steps that we think are very important. First is you have to kind of do a stakeholder mapping and engagement, where you talk to the consumers on what are the problems they are facing. You talk to academicians, then you have a group in your teams that kind of co-design and co-research new products with upstream design at its core. And then you ideate, prototype, and validate. And then you do small pilots and scale up to see. A lot of times, circular economy innovations, even at fourth stage, do not fly out because you're at there is an arrow, you're at the tip of the arrow. You have to face a lot of headwinds. It's a very difficult market. So you're trying to challenge the whole economic system. When you implement circular economy in businesses, you have to look at, again, 3 things. You have to look at zero waste strategy. That has to be in mind at the top. And you can only do that by circular design. And then you ensure that all the stakeholders throughout the supply chain, even the recyclers, are bought in and their buy-in is there. Unless you only think in your boardrooms and you don't talk to the recyclers who are on the ground facing challenges in recycling your product, this is not going to be functional. Okay. We already have discussed this. So, what are the circular economy business models we can think about? One is renting. One is company-led repair, incentivized return, long life, and collaborative consumption, which is also sharing, right?
Mhm.
In this case, I am not a big fan of company-led repair because that's a very European concept. If you go to developing countries, I mean, in my country, we probably have 500, 2,000, 3,000 cobblers in New Delhi. And when to repair our shoes. And when my friends from abroad or people from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, UN, they come in, they get so amazed at repairing. So it's not always company-led repair. I actually believe in decentralization and repair, where anybody can repair anything. You don't have to go back and ask people to make money out of repair. Then when you look at creating a framework on circular economy, you probably have to in your companies you have to look at water usage, material usage, carbon emissions, fair labor, and closing the loop. Closing the loop, all of these other things are obviously important on the sustainability parameter, but closing the loop is like the most circular economy thing. But all of this is related to it. Like material usage is very important. Closing the loop has to do a lot of design, like we discussed. Ensuring that your products remain in the loop as long as possible and as much as possible. So this is a CE framework that can be made.
Maybe we can, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for a time. Maybe you have a slide to conclude and maybe just tell us what are your recommendations or how the bullet point we have to learn through this session.
Yes, let me see that slide, if there is any, to conclude. Okay. Yes.
It'd be interesting to see at least one case study.
Yes.
Time is ready. It's already 35.
Yeah, so I'll just do one case study and we'll conclude. Okay. This is Mud Jeans. It is a Dutch company. And they have a leasing business model on jeans. And first they ensure, but you can see that even their jeans is not circular. They're just using 60% organic cotton because jeans as a product cannot be circular because they don't know how to make it circular. It's again a design problem again, right? So what they're trying to do is in a leasing business model that they ensure that their jeans do not end up in waste as long as possible. They're doing very well. They're being challenged by the big brands, but they're doing pretty well. I've met the co-founders there, and they've also captured a good sharing jeans market in Europe. I think they're the only one at the moment, but they're doing pretty well. So it's again, while you don't know how to circular design fully, they're trying to do it. While they don't know how to do it fully, they're ensuring that the jeans that are being produced are shared with collaborative consumption and remain in the loop as much as possible. Right? I think that's about it. This is the paper Lux by Philips. One more thing. Such an exciting class. Sorry, guys. So when you start making circular economy principles, you'll also have a lot of challenges. People will confuse them with recycling. There'll be lack of support. There'll be lack of support from the accounts teams. because they on their balance sheet they need to sell as much as possible and as fast as possible. So you need to kind of convince them on the service angle that we can make money out of services as well. And it's another matter is convenience culture, right? You use and throw is the easiest way to do. To keep a product and repair it and reuse it is the tough thing to do. And also it's expensive, especially in Europe, to have products that have long shelf life. Yes, so hyperfixation on circular economy, on recycling is not good. Thank you, everybody. Happy to be here.